My report is in Chapter 4 Organization, Utilization, and Communication of Test Results. I will be your presenter, Eden R. Surya from BEd 3E. As students, we do often question ourselves about how we did at the exam. A very familiar question would be, what is my score in the test? Test score interpretation is important not just for the student's concerns, but also for the parents. Knowing how certain student performs with respect to the group or other members of the class is important. In some cases, assessment and grading are used interchangeably but are seemingly different. One difference is that assessment focuses on the learner. It gathers information about what the student knows and what he or she can do. Grading is a part of evaluation which it improves judgments made by the teacher. So the objective for this chapter is, at the end of the lesson, the students can, number 1, define what is grading, number 2, discuss the different methods in scoring tests and performance tasks, different types of test scores, guidelines on grading tests and performance, and how to communicate test scores. Number 3, prepare scoring rubrics for performance tasks. Number 4, discuss the assessment system in the Department of Education as obtained in DO number 8, Season 2015. And 5, compute the grades of learners based on DepEd guidelines. Lesson 3, Grading and Reporting of Test Results. Pre-discussion. Grading and reporting learners' test performance is a complex task. It requires specific knowledge, skills, and experience. Grading and reporting. Grading and reporting are fundamental elements in the teaching-learner process. Assignment of grades represent the teacher's assessment of the learner's performance on the tests and on the desired learning outcomes as a whole. Besides, grades are symbolic representations that summarize the quality of learners' work and level of achievement. Teachers should ensure that grading and reporting of learners' test results are meaningful, fair, and accurate. How to assign grades and reports learners' test performance in a meaningful and effective manner. It is important that you review your prior knowledge and experience, as well as the standards or policies used by your institution in grading and reporting learners' performance in the test and the course as a whole. You may also need to read books and other references on the topics to validate your prior knowledge and to enhance further your knowledge and skills. Let's move on with the definition of grading. Magno 2010 discussed the effective and efficient way of recording and reporting evaluation result is very important and useful to persons concerned in the school setting. Grades are essential in education such that students' learning can be assessed, quantified, and communicated. Every teacher needs to assign grades which are based on assessment tools such as tests, quizzes, projects, and so on. Grading implies A. Combining several assessments, B. Translating the result into some type of scale that has evaluative meaning, and C. Reporting the result in a formal way. From this definition, we can clearly say that grading is more than quantitative values as many may see it, rather it is a process. Grades are frequently misunderstood as scores. Grades are the ones written in the report cards of students, which is a compilation of students' progress and achievement all throughout a quarter, a trimester, a semester, or a school year. As shown in the figure 1, this is the process on coming up with a grade. Take for instance 2 long exams, 5 quizzes, and 10 homework assignments as requirements for a quarter in a particular subject area. To arrive at grades, a teacher must be able to combine scores from the different sets of requirements and compute or translate them according to the assigned weights or percentages. Then, he or she should be able to design effective ways on how he or she can communicate it with the students, parents, administrators, and others who are concerned. What are the purposes of grading and reporting learners' test performance? They give feedback on what specific topics learners have mastered and what they need to focus more when they review or summative assessment or final exams. Grades also provide the parents who have the greatest stake in learners' education precise information about their children's achievements. They are also useful to school administrators who want to evaluate the effectiveness of the instructional programs in developing the needed skills and competencies of the learners. Magno 2020 emphasized that the purposes of grading can be categorized into 4 major parts in the educational setting. The first one is feedback. Feedback plays an important role in the field of education such that it provides information about the student's progress or lack. Feedback can be addressed to 3 distinct groups concerned in the teaching and learning processes: parents, students, and teachers. Feedback to parents. Grades also help parents to identify the strengths and weaknesses of their child. Parents may also receive feedbacks about their children's behavior, conduct, social skills, and other variables that might be included in the report card. On a general point of view, grades basically tell parents whether their child was able to perform satisfactorily. Next is feedback to students. Students can be able to further develop their competencies and improve their deficiencies. Grades also help students to keep track of their progress and identify changes in their performance. This feedback is directly proportional with the age and year level with the students such that grades are given more importance and meaning in a high school student as compared to a grade 1 student. However, motivation plays a role in grades. Feedback to students that they can somehow A. Assess whether students were able to acquire competencies they are supposed to have after instruction. B. Assess whether their instruction plan and implementation was effective for the students. C. Reflect their teaching strategies and methods. D. Reflect about possible positive and negative factors that might have affected the grades of students before, during, and after instruction. And E. Evaluate whether the program was indeed effective or not. Given these beneficial purposes of grades to teachers, we can really say that teaching and learning is a two-way interrelated process, such that it is not only the students who learn from the teacher, but the teacher also learns from the students.
Good morning, class. So this is the continuations of the previous discussion. So let's discuss first the administrative purposes. School administrator can use the grades of the student for a more general purpose as compared to teacher, such that they can utilize grade to evaluate program, identify and assess areas that needs to be improved, and whether or not curriculum goals and objectives of the school has been attained by the student through their institution. School administrator use the grade of the student to evaluate the program, identify and assess the areas that needs to be improved, and whether or not curriculum goals and objective must attained by the student through their institution. Next is we have the promotions and retention. Grades can serve as one factor in determining if the student will be promoted to the next level or not. So in this, it can be identified if the student will be promoted into the next level or retained for more improvements. In other school, they take grades as one of the factor in taking consideration for eligibility in joining extracurricular activities like, for example, performing, theater arts, varsity team, cheering squad, and other extracurricular activities. Failing marks may prohibit the student to be part of varsity team, running for officer, joining organization, and other privileges that the student passing grades get. Grades are also used to qualify a student to enter high school or college in some cases. Other policies may aside depending on the school internal regulation. In some other colleges and universities, like for example in SKSU, they prioritize the student who have passing grade, enroll in succeeding terms, compared to the student who had failing grades. So next one, we have placement of student and awards. Grade are factors to be considered in placing student according to their competences and deficiencies. So the reason why the student placing according to their competences and deficiencies is for the teaching to be more focused in terms of developing the strength and improving the weaknesses of the student. So through this strategy, students who have high ability in science can further improve their knowledge and skills by receiving advanced and complex topic in a faster pace, while the student who have low ability in science can receive a simpler and specific topic in a lower pace. Aside from placement of the student, grades are frequently used as basis for academic awards. So we all know that many or almost of the schools and colleges have honor rolls and dean's lists to recognize the student. The next is program evaluations and improvement. Through the grades of the student taking a certain program effectiveness can be somehow evaluated. Grade of the student be a factor in use determining where the program was effective or not. So class, through this evaluation process, some factors might have affected the program's effectiveness can identify and minimize to improve program further to future implementations. The last one, we have admissions and selection. External organization from school also use grades as reference for admission. Di ba class, when the student transferred to another school, her or his grade played a crucial role for admission. Most of the colleges use the grade as basis for admission. It is also used in employment for job selection purposes at the times. Even in insurance companies, use grade as basis for giving discount in insurance rate. We are now on what are the different methods in scoring tests or performance tasks. So there are various ways to score and grading result in multiple choice tests. Traditionally, the two most commonly used methods are number right scoring or NR and negative marking or NM. So number right scoring or NR, it entails assigning positive values only to correct answer while giving a score of 0 to incorrect answer. So the test score is to sum up the score for correct responses. One major concern with this scoring method is that the learner may get the correct answer by guessing, thus affecting the test reliability and validity. So for example, in multiple choice, solve for 3 open parentheses x plus 8 close parentheses minus open parentheses x minus 12 close parentheses is equal to negative 28. So the choices are A is x is equal to 32, B, x is equal to 8, C, x is equal to negative 32, and D, x is negative 8. So the correct answer in these items, item is letter C, x is equal to negative 32. So aside from letter C, all the answers are wrong. So the equivalent score of this is 0. So we have negative marking or NM. In negative marking, it entails assigning positive values to correct answer while punishing the learners for incorrect response. Right minus wrong, correcting method. So other model for this type of scoring methods include 1. Giving a positive score to correct answer while assigning no mark for omitted items, and rewarding learners for not guessing by awarding points rather than penalizing learners for incorrect answer. Learners who choose letter D will be given a score. Those who left the item unanswered will be given a 0 point. And those who choose A, B, C, or E will get negative score. The total score is then computed by adding the score. Example, 1, 0, 0, 0.25 across all items. For example, in 10 item test, if the learner got 6 correct answer, 2 items wrong and left 2 items wrong and left 2 items unanswered, then the total score is 5.5. Let's see the illustration. In this illustration, we have the item 1, which is the student got correct, so the equivalent score of this is 1. The item 2, the student left this unanswered, so she got 0 points. In number 3, the student answered, but it is incorrect, so he got or she got 0.25. And so on. As a result, non-conventional scoring methods were introduced, which include number 1, partial credit scoring method, number 2, multiple answer scoring method, number 3, retrospective correcting for guessing, and number 4, standard setting scoring method. So that ends my lesson for today. I hope you understand.
Hi, I'm Kenneth Jan B. Belhera from BEd 3E, and I would like to continue the topic of the previous reporter. Now, let's talk about partial credit scoring method. It attempts to determine a learner's degree of level of knowledge with respect to each response option given. This method of scoring takes into account partial knowledge or mastery of learners. It acknowledges that while learners cannot always recognize the correct response, they can discern that some response options are clearly incorrect. There are 3 formats of partial credit scoring method. We have the liberal multiple choice test, the elimination testing or ET, and the confidence weighting, or WC. First, we have the liberal multiple choice test. The liberal multiple choice test is, it allows learners to select more than one answer to a question if they are uncertain which option or alternative is correct. Second, we have the elimination testing, or ET. It instructs learners to cross out of all alternatives they consider to be incorrect. And the number 3, we have the confidence weighting, or CW. It asks learners to indicate what they believe is the correct answer and how confident they are about their choice. For this type of scoring, an item can be assigned different scores depending on the learner's response. This can be illustrated by one item below. For example, Linda obtained a score of 55% in her reading test. What does her score mean? Justify your answer. We have A. Linda got the 55% of the test items correct. Or B. And B. Linda was able to answer correctly more than half of the items. And C. Linda obtained a raw score lower than those obtained by 55% of his peers. And letter D. If the test has 60 items, Linda would probably have 33 correct answers. For these items, each response option has a assigned score with its corresponding rationale. An example of how the item can be scored is shown below. Okay, try to look at the table. In the table we have the option, points, and rationale. In option A, we have the points of 3, and the rationale is, since the score was presented in percent, this is correct interpretation. In option B, we have 1 point. While the interpretation may be correct, it does not give a more specific meaning to the score. Besides, the same interpretation can be also applicable to score higher than 51%. In option C, we have the 0 points. This interpretation is wrong, as this interpretation is applicable to the score of 55th percentile wrong. And in option D, we have 2 points. This interpretation gives an example of how the score was computed. Okay? And now, let's move to the another methods, which is the multiple answer scoring method. The multiple answer scoring method, it allows learners to have multiple answers for each item. In this method, learners are instructed that each item has at least one correct answer, or how many answers are correct. Items can be scored as solved only if all the correct response options are marked, but none of the incorrect others. Incorrect options that are marked can lead into negative scores. According to Tain 2001, he found that multiple answer and single answer items have the same discrimination power, item difficulty, and reliability indices. However, multiple answer method is more difficult to solve, has lower discrimination power, and takes more time to answer. Yes. Let's consider the previous example. What if the above item was stated as Linda obtained a score of 55% in her reading test. What is or are the possible interpretations of her score? A. Linda got a 55 of the test items correct. And B. Linda was able to answer correctly more than half of the items. C. Linda obtained a raw score lower than those obtained by 55 of his peers. And letter D. If the test has 60 items, Linda was probably have 33 correct answer. Okay. The above item is type of multiple answer test and would require two different scoring methods. Learners who choose option A, B, and D will get 1 point each. As such, if a learner chooses option and A and D, she will obtain a score of 2. For that item he or she chooses option A, B, and D, he he or she will get 4 points. Okay? Get it? Thus, learners who choose the wrong option will be penalized using the negative marking method. That already tackled by the previous reporter.
Good morning, everyone. I am Jonabel B. Masendo. I am your reporter for this morning. And my report is the continuation of Chapter 4, Lesson 3, the grading reporting of test result. But first, our objective in this morning is, at the end of the lesson, the student should able to demonstrate their knowledge, understanding, and skills in the type of multiple answer test and would require a different scoring method. Retrospective correcting for guessing. It is considered omitted or no answer items as incorrect, forcing learning to give an answer for every item even if they do not know the correct answer. The correction for guessing is implemented later on retroactively. This can be done through comparing learning answer in multiple choice items with their answer other test format, such as short answer test. So, according to this format, an absent answer is seen as incorrect answer. So, for their benefits, students need to give an answer to every question even if they do not know the correct answer. With the use of multiple choice and short answer tests, so as a future educator, we can know the capability or knowledge of our student with the child use of this format. Next is the standard settings. Standard settings, it entails using standard word scoring multiple choice items, particularly standard set through norm reference or criterion reference assessment. Standard based or norm reference assessment area derived from the test performance of certain group of learners, while standard from criterion reference assessment are based on present standard specified from the very start by the teacher or school in general. So, standard settings is the process used to distinguish between competent student and incompetent student. This is achieved by determining the score or mark associated with the level of skills or knowledge of our student or standard. So, in standard settings, marking or scoring constructed type of tests such as essay and performing tests required standardized scoring schemes so that scores are reliable and have the same valid meaning for all learners. So there are 4 types of scoring, and this is R1, holistic, 2, analytic, 3, primary trait, and 4, multiple trait scoring. Holistic scoring. It involves giving a single or overall assessment score for an essay, writing composition, or other performance type of assessment as a whole. Although the scoring rubric for holistic scoring lays out specific criteria for evaluating a task, raters do not assign a score for each criterion. Instead, as they read writing tasks or observe a performing task, they balance strengths and weaknesses among the various criteria to arrive at an overall assessment. Holistic scoring is considered efficient in terms of time and cost. It also does not penalize pure performance based on only one aspect. However, it is said that holistic scoring does not provide sufficient diagnostic information about the student ability, as it does not identify the areas of improvement and is difficult to interpret, as it does not detail the basis for evaluation. So, yun nga, the holistic scoring will provide an examinee with a single score regarding the quality of examined work. Most common holistic scoring is used to assess writing samples, though it may be employed to assess any performance task. For example, acting, debate, dance, or athletic. So, we have here the following example of a rubric for an oral presentation, rating, or grade characteristic. Ito makikita ninyo ang example of rating or grading and the characteristic of it. So let's move to the analytic scoring, which it involves assess each aspect of a performance task and assigning a score for each criterion. Well, sometimes an overall score is given by averaging the score in all criteria. And one advantage of analytic scoring is the reliability. It also provides information that can be used as diagnostic as it presents learning strength and weaknesses and in what areas and eventually as basis for remedial instruction. But however, it's more time consuming and therefore expensive. It's also prone to halo effect, wherein score in one skills may influence the rating of others. It is also difficult to create. So, analytic scoring is a method of evaluating student work that requires assigning a separate score for each dimension of a task. It most often used when there is a need to assess how well students perform on individual dimensions of whole product or performance.
Good day everyone, I am Jericho Padura, and this is the continuation of our report in Chapter 3, Lesson 1, which is here the rubrics for the final research paper. So, a rubric is a coherent set of criteria for students' work that includes descriptions of levels of performance quality on the criteria. Rubrics is that they are descriptive and not evaluative. Of course, rubrics can be used to evaluate, but operating principle is to match the performance to the description rather than judge it. Thus, rubrics are as good or bad as the criteria selected in the descriptions of the levels of performance under each. Effective rubrics have appropriate criteria and well-written descriptions of performance. Like any other evaluation tool, rubrics are useful for certain purposes and not for others. The main purpose of rubrics is to assess the performances. For some performances, you observe the students in the process of doing something, like using an electric drill or discussing an issue. For other performances, you observe the product that is the result of students' work, like a finished bookshelf or a written report. And now, I will going to show you the rubrics for the final research paper, and it is also an example of analytic scoring for a research paper, which includes introduction, method, results, discussion, conclusion, and recommendations, as well as some criteria for spelling, grammar, documentation, and format.
For the first one is introduction. Letter A clearly identifies and discusses research focus or purpose. Letter B, research focus is clearly grounded in previous research theoretically relevant literature. Letter C, significance of study is clearly identified and how it adds to previous research. Letter D, others please specify. And the four bases or indicator are the expert, proficient, apprentice, and novice. For the second one is method that provides accurate and thorough information of the following. Letter A, research method, design, and contacts. Letter B, data source, collection, procedure, and tools. Letter C, data analysis. Letter D, others, please specify. For the third one is the results. Letter A, results are clearly explained in a comprehensive level and are well organized. Letter B, tables, figures clearly and concisely convey the data. Letter C, statistical analysis are appropriate tests and are accurately interpreted. Letter D, others, please specify. And for the fourth one is conclusions, discussion, and recommendations. Letter A is interpretations, analysis of result are thoughtful and insightful, are clearly informed by studies results, and thoroughly addressed how they supported, refuted, and or informed the hypothesis proposition. Letter B, discussions on how the study relates to and or enhances the present scholarship in this area are adequate. Letter C, suggestions for further research in this area are insightful and thoughtful. Letter D, others, please specify. And the fifth one is documentation and quality of resources. A, cites all data obtained from other sources. B, styles is accurately used in both text and references. Letter C, sources are all scholarly and clearly relate to research. Letter D, others, please specify. And the sixth one is spelling and grammar. A. No error in spelling. B. No error in grammar. C. No error in the use of punctuation marks. And D. Others, please specify. And the last one is manuscript format. Letter A, title page has proper APA formatting. Letter B, used correct headings and subheadings consistently. Letter C, proper margins were observed. Letter D, others, please specify.
And that is the rubric for the final research paper. And now, let's proceed to primary trait scoring. What is primary trait scoring? So, it focuses only one aspect of criterion of a task, and a learner's performance is evaluated on only trait. This scoring system defines a primary trait in the test that will be then scored. For example, if a teacher in a political science class asks students to write an essay on the advantages and disadvantages of martial law, like the writing task, the basic question addressed in scoring is, did the writer successfully accomplish the purpose of this task? So with this focus, teacher would ignore errors and conventions of written language but instead focus on overall rhetorical effectiveness. One disadvantage of this scoring scheme is that it is often difficult to focus exclusively on one trait, such that other traits may be included when scoring. Thus, it is important that a very detailed scoring guide is used for each specific task. An advantage of primary trait scoring is that it makes explicit specific feature were that one that matters most for successful performance. So the next one is multiple trait scoring. So what is multiple trait scoring? So it requires that an essay test or performance task is scored on more aspects with scoring criteria in place so that they are consistent with the prompt. Multiple trait scoring is task specific, and the features to be scored vary from the task, thus requiring separate scores for different criteria. Multiple trait scoring is similar to analytic scoring because of its focus on several categories of criteria. However, while analytic scoring evaluates more traditional and generic dimensions of language production, multiple trait scoring focuses on specific features or performance required to fulfill the given task or tasks. For example, scoring criteria for writing performance may include abilities to present argument clearly, to organize once and to present accurate language usage through grammar, punctuation, and spelling. So that's all for my report. Thank you and God bless.
Good day everyone, my name is Myla Reyes Arangale and my report is all about the different types of score. There are two types of the score. Number one is the row score. Number two is the percentage score. Dito, pag-uusapan natin ang pamamaraan sa pag-compute ng grade ng ating mga students. First, pag-uusapan natin ang row score. Row score is an altered measurement. Row score is simply the number of items answered correctly on the test. Example, let's say you took a test in a class and scored 85 out of 100. Yung 85 would be your row score or the actual score. Then, proceed naman tayo sa percentage score. This refers to the percent of item answered correctly in the test. The number of items answered correctly is typically converted to the percent based on the total possible score. Your score is 85 out of 100. 85 divided by 100, simply divide the numerator by the denominator. 85 divided by 100 is equals to 0.85. Once we have the answer to that division, we can multiply the answer by 100 to make it percentage. 0.85 times 100 equals to 85%. Then, proceed naman tayo sa next. Mayroon tayong two major type of grading system. Number 1 is the criterion reference grading system. Number 2 is the norm reference grading system. First, aalamin natin kung ano ang criterion reference grading system. This is a grading system wherein learner test score or achievement level are based on their performance in specified learner goal and outcome and performance standard. Then, ang criterion reference grading system, it is independent of the standard of a group. Because of the standard, here in criteria, we set a given mastery standard. We set a given criteria. We set a given percentage of scoring which we could say that this person pass or failed. We set a level of mastery. Yan yung tinatawag nating criteria. In our school, we have here 70%. 70%. So, for every 100 item na ibibigay na quiz ng teacher, we, as a student, we should at least get 70 so that we could get 3. Okay? Yung 70% ng quiz ay makuha mo to get a 3 para makapasa ka. Yan yung standard. Ito ay nakadepende on the criteria of the school. So alam na ninyo yung criterion reference grading system. Ito ay base sa criteria given. There are 4 types of criterion reference score or grade. Number 1 is pass or fail grade. Number 2 is letter grade. Number 3 is the plus and minus letter grades. Number 4 is the categories grade. First, pag-uusapan natin ang pass or fail grade. It is referred to grading system in which student receive whether a passing or failing grade. Ito yung grading system na ginagamit if yung student ba ay nakapasa or bagsak. Next naman ay ang letter grade. This is one of the most commonly used grading system. Letter grade are usually composed of 5 label grading skills, labeled from A to E or F, with A representing the highest level of achievement or performance. E or F is the lowest grading representing a failing grade. These are often used for all forms of learners' work, such as quizzes, essay, project, and assignment. Sa table, makikita ninyo ng A stands for excellent, B stands for good, C stands for satisfactory, D stands for poor, E stands for unacceptable. Then, proceed naman tayo sa plus and minus grading. It is acquired for all undergraduate, graduate, and professional course using A to F letter grading system. The letter grade A, B, C, and D have the suffix plus or minus, including the distinguished higher or lower performances.
Categories grades. This system of grading is generally more descriptive than letter grades. Yan yung example ng categories grade. Norm reference grading system. Refer to a grading system wherein a student performance is evaluated relatively to the performance of other students. There are different types of norm reference scores. Number 1 is developmental scores, 2 percentile rank, number 3 Stein score, and number 4 is standard scores. Developmental score. This is a score that had been transformed from raw score and reflected to average performance at the age and grade levels. There are two kinds of developmental scores. Number 1 is the grade equivalent. Number 2 is age equivalent scores. Grade equivalent. It is described as both growth score and status score. Age equivalent scores indicate the age level that used typically to the learner to obtain such raw score. It reflects a learner performance in terms of chronological age as compared to those in norm group. Percentile rank. Percentile rank of a score is the percentage of score in the frequency distribution that are equal to or lower. The table that you can see is the example of percentile rank, and this is the example of Stein score. Standard score. They are raw score that are converted into a common scale of measurement that provides meaningful descriptions of individual score within the distribution. There are two types of standard score, the T-score and the Z-score. First, the Z-score. The Z-score is one of the standard score. Z-score have a mean of 0 and the standard deviation of 1. It is computed using the following formula. The standard scores are useful when you want to compare the learner's test performance across the two distributions. The T-score. The T-score is a standard deviation of mathematical term that calculate how much a result varies from the average or mean.
So good afternoon everyone. I will discuss to you the guidelines in grading tests or performance tests. So what are the general guidelines in grading tests or performance tests? In grading a test or performance task, you should be careful and be observant to avoid misunderstanding and conflict. It should be equitable, fair, and meaningful. It is important to know the method or guidelines in grading a test or performance task. So the following are the general guidelines in grading tests or performance tasks. Number 1, stick to the purpose of the assessment. So in this first guideline, you should know first the purpose or what is the purpose of the assessment that you want to do to have a good outcomes to the students. Is your assessment would be diagnostic purposes? Would it be formative or summative assessment? Because there are some assessments that are not graded like diagnostic or formative assessment. Like in diagnostic assessment, it is used to gather feedback to the learners through their prior knowledge or misconception before the start of a learning activity. On the other side, the formative assessment used to know if the learners need an improvement to the topics that being given. So in this assessment, the learners can reflect or monitor their own learnings. So these two assessments are not graded, while in summative it should be graded because it is the way to see how well the learners can achieve the desired learning outcomes. So in this guideline, you should stick to the purpose of the assessment. Number 2, be guided by the desired learning. So this guideline, it is necessary to disseminate an information for the learners to know what should they expect in grading a task or how they will be assessed. In orientation, as you can see, the teacher show a course syllabus on how the learners should be graded based on their performance or answering the test, and so on. Number 3, develop grading criteria. So as for this, you should inform your learners to the criteria being used for the task and performance tasks that they will do, so that the learners can know how their work is graded by the teachers, and the criteria should be easy to understand to save time in grading process. The criteria must be fair and consistent.
Number 4. Inform learners what scoring methods are to be used. Before the start of the test, the learners should be aware on how to score their test. Is their test responses should be scored based on the number right, negative marking, or through non-conventional scoring methods. And this method should be applied to every learner in the same class or the other learners in the same course but different classes. When we say number right, scoring implies only the number of the correct answers, while the negative marking, it is where you apply the penalties by deducting the score for language mechanics. And last, non-conventional scoring method. It is both number right and negative marking. Last is number 5. Decide on what type of test scores to use. So in the previous discussion, there are different ways on how the learning of the students can be measured or presented. As it said in the guideline, the performance in a particular test can be measured and reported through these 4 scores: the raw scores, percentage scores, criterion reference scores, and norm reference scores. And it is very important to use these different types of grading scheme for the different tests, assignments, or performance tasks. And also, before starting the test, the students should be aware on the grading system to be used in the test or task. So, raw score, it simply means the number of questions a student answered correctly. Percentage score, a percentage is a number expressed as a fraction of 100. For example, the number of correct answers divided by the total number of questions multiplied by 100. Criterion reference score compares a student's raw score to a predetermined standard based on the content of the assessment. And last, norm reference score refers to standardized tests that are designed to compare and rank test takers in relation to one another. So that are the guidelines in grading tests or performance tests.
So, good afternoon class. So, our topic is all about guidelines in grading tests or performance tests. So, dito is malalaman natin kung paano tayo mag-rate ng kanilang mga tests or magbibigay ng mga grades sa kanilang mga performance tests. So, next is, first, identify the criteria for rating the essay. So, dito is, bago tayo magbibigay ng kanilang mga scores or mga paano natin i-rate yung kanilang mga essay. So, mag-identify muna tayo ng ating mga criteria. So, yung criteria na ito is dito tayo magbe-base kung paano natin i-rate yung kanilang mga ginagawa or kanilang mga ginawa na essay. So, next is determine the type of rubrics to use. So, dito is kailangan mo munang i-determine sa inyo, sa mga bata, kung ano ba ang gagawin mong rubrics para malaman rin nila kung ano ang mga dapat na gawin. So, next is number 3, prepare the rubric. So, dito na nga yung sinasabi ko na kailangan mo muna bago ka gumawa, magbibigay ng mga scores or magsisimula sa iyong mga gawain. So, you need to prepare the rubric. So, isa ito sa pinaka-importanting bagay na dapat mo na gawin. So, number 4 is evaluate essay anonymously. So, dito is sa pag-evaluate mo ng kanilang mga essay. So, hindi mo kailangan ipaalam sa kanila kung sino ba ang nag-evaluate sa kanilang mga sagot. So, number 5 is score 1 essay question at a time. So, sa pagtingin mo ng kanilang mga sagot is kailangan mo lang basihan yung kanilang mga sagot at hindi mo na kailangang mag-score as a whole. So, pag-focus ka lang sa kanilang mga sagot na iyon. So, next is number 6, be conscious of own biases when evaluating a paper. So, dito is hindi natin maiiwasan ito sa ating elementary time, no? So, as a future educator, so hindi dapat natin itong gawin sa ating mga estudyante, yung pagiging bias. Kasi isa ito sa kakasira ng ating pagiging guro. So, next is review initial scores and comments before giving the final rating. So, sa pagbibigay mo ng inyong mga ng kanilang mga scores, so i-review mo muna yung kanilang mga initial scores or kailangan mo magbigay ng comments bago mo ibigay yung kanilang final na rating. So, next is number 8, get 2 or more raters. So dito is sa pag-rate mo ng kanilang mga gawa is kailangan mong kumuha ng 2 tao o yung magre-rate sa kanilang mga gawa para hindi kanila masabihan na bias, kasi pag meron kang mga tao na magre-rate sa kanila is maiisip nila na hindi bias yung guro. So next is write comments. So as a whole sa ng kanilang mga gawa is hindi mo kailangan kalimutang gumawa ng comments sa kanilang mga gawa, kasi isa iyon sa magpapa-inspired sa kanilang mga gawain sa paaralan. Kasi alam naman natin na yung mga bata is madali silang ma-attract sa mga sinasabi ng mga guro, lalong-lalo na yung kung magaganda pa yung mga sinasabi ng mga guro. So that's all of my report. I hope you learned something, and thank you and God bless.
Good day everyone, my name is Shelamay Maestre and my topic is all about grading system and K-12 basic education program. Grading system is the process by which educators evaluate the performance of the pupils in exams on the standards particular scale, which is based on the point grades of the scholar. In Department of Education, grading and reporting system is articulated in DepEd Order Number 8 Series of 2015. Indicated shall be based on the weighted row scores of the students' summative assessments. The minimum grade in each learning area shall be 60, which transmuted to 75 in the report card. Learners from grade 1 to grade 12 will graded in written works, performance tasks, and quarterly assessments. The final grade is the summative of the students' works in 3 components. Percentage score is equals to the number of learners' total row score over highest possible score times 100%.
And the formula of weighted score is weighted score is equals to percentage score times the weight of the component. To compute the grade of kindergarten is different from grade 1 to grade 12. Why? Because in kindergarten, the guidelines specific to assessment of kindergarten, learners will be issued in different memorandum or order. For kindergarten, checklist and anecdotal records are used instead of numerical rates. Unlike in the grade 1 to grade 12, in a grading period, there is one or quarterly assessment, or there should be instances for students to produce written works and to demonstrate what they know and can do through performance tasks. We need to add the scores of the students in written works, performance tasks, and quarterly assessments. Row scores from each component had to be converted to a percentage score. The sum for each component is converted to the percent score. To compute the final grades and general average in Department of Education K-12 grading system, first, we need to add all grades of students in written works, performance tasks, and quarterly assessments, assuming that a student has obtained the following row score in different components in English subjects. There are the 3 components, and the total score of the learners is 145 in written works, that the total possible score is 160. Convert it in percentage score. Using the first step, divide the total row score by the highest possible score, then multiply the quotient. For example, in written works, 145 is the total score, and the highest possible score is 160. So 145 divided by 160 times 100%. What will be the answer? The answer is 0.90625 times 100. Let's multiply the two. The product is 90.63. Therefore, the percentage score of the learner in a written work is 90.63. And the performance test, ganun din ang ating gagawin using the formula. And the next step, convert the percentage score to weighted score, the percentage score by weight of the component. In the second step, we multiply the percentage score to the weight of the component. For example, the weight of components of written works is 30%, shown in the table. 30%, para maging convert natin siya sa decimal, we need to divide 30 to 100 so that 30 is equivalent to 0.30. We multiply the 90.63 to 0.30 so that the learner has weighted score of 27.19. And ganun din if we apply to performance task and quarterly assessment. The next step is add the weighted score of each component, and the result will be the initial grade of the learners. In this step, let's add the 3 weighted score of each component. So, the sum of the 3 components are 84.86. So, the initial grade of the learners in English subject is 84.86. The question is, how is the learner progress reported? If the grading scale of the students corresponds to the description and if is remarks passed or failed.
Good morning everyone. So I am Mr. Martinez Luza. I am your reporter for today, and this is the continuation of our topic. So, assessment. What is assessment? Assessment is the evaluation or estimation of the quality or ability of someone or something. So in other words, it is the action or an instance of making a judgment about something. So in grading and reporting test scores, we can identify the methods of scoring, types of grades, and reporting strategies that we will use through assessment. In conducting assessment, we must come up with a grading and reporting scheme in each type of assessment that we will use in each of our subject. So in the development of the grading and reporting scheme, we must know the following. So the first one is the purpose of the assessment. The second one is desired learning outcomes. The third one is types of assessment, grading criteria, scoring and grading method, and lastly is the types of scores. So in the development of grading and reporting schemes, let us always remember that we should take into consideration all the guidelines on grading and reporting tests or performance task results. And after that, we must evaluate our understanding about grading and reporting of test results.